This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Storytellers Cafe, a storytelling show on Bharat FM. I thank each and every one of you who come back every week to listen, learn, and enjoy. Today's guest is someone I have been wanting to interview for a very long time, since I launched Storytellers Cafe on Bharat FM almost 2 years back. She has been on my list of names of tellers when I launched Storytellers Cafe. Today, we travel from the land of stories to another land of stories, to Yorkshire. It's a historic county in northern England. It's known for its Roman and Viking heritage, as well as its Norman castles, medieval abbeys, and two national parks. My guest tonight is Sita Brand. Sita was born and raised in Bombay and has traveled widely. She has been telling stories for over 30 years. Sita grew up surrounded by stories told to her by her mother and aunts. After a degree in drama at the Exeter University, Sita got a job with common law storytellers and musicians with whom she toured for several years. Since then, she has worked as an actress, director, dramaturg, producer, and arts and heritage consultant for a range of organizations in the United Kingdom, India, and Southeast Asia. After a career in theatre, Sita settled in the Yorkshire Dales for a quiet life, but ended up establishing Settle Stories. Sita has written and performed several one woman shows, including Memories of an Indian Childhood and The Present Moment. Her first interactive fiction for children, Down the Rabbit Hole, launched in 2018. Her first children's book, The Dragon's Pearl, was published by Settle Stories Press in 2018. She's currently working on a new storytelling show, Bombs at My Feet, about her experiences in Laos. For many years, Sita has been a student of the Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. In 2005, she journeyed through Vietnam with him and an international delegation of monks and nuns to record and present a program for BBC Radio 4 about him, the Vietnamese Buddha. She uses her extensive knowledge of mindfulness meditation to run live and online retreats using mindfulness and creativity. Sita founded Settle Stories in 2010. The company works with exceptional artists to create transformative experiences for people and communities. The company runs Yorkshire Festival of Story, the largest free storytelling festival online globally, and an extensive learning program. In 2021, last year, Settle Stories reached 85,000 young people through their school program. Her recent project is Storyversity. Sita will be talking to us about all the three, a new platform, online platform that teaches people to tell stories so they can make a difference. It has a growing worldwide audience. Sita's story is remarkable to say the least, my friends. Please welcome to the show Storytellers Cafe, Sita Brand. Hello,
Hello,
Sita.
hello, Usha. It's so wonderful to see you. And I look forward to seeing you in person in hopefully the not too distant future.
Yes, absolutely. Keeping my fingers crossed. Welcome to Storytellers Cafe, Sita. Like I said, you've been on my list, and I've been, you know, it's been my dream to have you on this show. So here you are finally. Welcome to Storytellers Cafe. Tell us your story.
So that's a good place to start. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very honored. Growing up in India, like many of us have, and many of your listeners will have done so, is that we are surrounded by stories. Everything is a story. Whether it's you're going to a puja and there's something that's being explained, or whether there's a Diwali festival or Holi or whatever. Everything around us is stories. And I was told stories as a child by my mother, who read to me. She was a librarian at the Cathedral and John Convent School. So, and she used to tell us stories and also read us stories. In fact, Mom used to say that even at the age of like 12, I would say, "Oh, Mom, please tell me a story, read to me, tell me a story." She was worried, particularly as a librarian, because she thought, "My goodness, is my daughter unable to read?" And it wasn't that I was unable to read. I just loved the act of listening to a story, that sense of being drawn in or being read to, the hearing a voice and being brought together with someone. So that's how it began. And I can remember, maybe this is time for a quick tale before I tell you a little bit more about Settle Stories. So remember one of the very early times when Mum came into schools, I would have been in like standard 6, something like that. And she came in, and it was an assembly, and I was at the same school. And you know how it is with your mother, you're always more nervous and you're always more embarrassed. What is it about your parents? They always can push the right buttons, and then everybody's looking at you because that's your mom, and all of this is going on in your head. And she told this story, which is one that I have now told to many, many people, particularly children all over. So if you can imagine yourself sitting here as a young person, as a child, this is a story from Malaysia called Lazy Talk. Tok was born lazy. She was so lazy, she couldn't be bothered to cry, even as a baby. People would say to her mother, "Why, Mrs. Tok, what a good baby you've got! What a good baby you've got!" And the fact of the matter was, she just couldn't be bothered to cry. Now, when Tok grew up and she got to the age of about 8 or 9, she went and sat under a palm tree. And what do you know? But the tree spoke to her. And the tree said, "Tok, why don't you break off one of my branches? You could take me to market with you." Tok just said, "I can't be bothered. Why don't you just do it yourself?" "Oh, all right," said the tree. And the tree broke off its branch. And the branch went and lay down by Lazy Tok. "Tok," said the branch, "why don't you turn me into a basket? You could take me to market with you. You could fill me with lots of goodies." Tok just went, "I can't be bothered." "Oh, all right," said the branch. And the branch turned itself into a little basket. And once more the basket asked Tok and said, "Tok, take me to market with you. You can choose the goodies." "I can't be bothered," said Tok. Oh, all right, said the basket. And the basket went and sat down by the side of the road. Well, it wasn't long when a big fat man came along and he saw that basket and he thought, why, there's a fine basket to take to market with me. And he picked up that basket and he went to the marketplace. And he filled that basket with all sorts of goodies. There was potatoes and carrots and turnips and brinjal, and there was dals and rice and sambar and everything that you could possibly think of. And it was filled up, the basket. It was so full, and there was this beautiful, lovely mango sitting on the top. And the big fat man put that basket down. He put his hand into his wallet. He took out a big fat wallet, and he was about to pay the shopkeeper. Well, what do you know? The basket got out its little legs, and it ran as fast as possibly could all the way back to Lazy Talk. Here I am, said the basket. Don't you want to see what I've got for you? Can't be bothered, said Talk. Why don't you just show me yourself? Oh, all right, said the basket. So, well, the food that cooked itself, it warmed itself up, and Talk just sat there, and she began to eat. She ate, and she ate, and she ate, and she ate, and she got fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter and lazier and lazier and lazier and lazier. When the basket was quite empty, the basket said to Talk, Talk, I'm empty. Why don't you take me to market with you? You could fill me with so many goodies. And what did Talk say? I can't be bothered. Why don't you just do it yourself? Oh, all right, said the basket. And the basket went and sat down by the side of the road. And this time, an even bigger, even fatter man came down the road, and he picked up that basket and he took it to the marketplace, and he filled it with, even more innumerable goodies, and this time with lots of chocolates and sweets and jelly and ice cream and, all sorts of things too delicious to mention. And when the basket was quite full, he put the basket down, he put his hand into his pocket, took out his big fat wallet, took the money out to pay the shopkeeper. Well, what do you know? The basket got out its little legs, and it ran all the way back to Lazy Talk. Here I am, said the basket. Don't you want to see what I got for you? Oh, can't be bothered, said Talk. So, well, the food cooked itself. Talk began to eat. She ate, and she ate, and she ate, and she ate. She got fatter and fatter and fatter and lazier and lazier and lazier. It got to the point where she just lay there with her mouth open, and the food just dripped itself into her mouth. And when the food was quite finished, there was nothing in the basket. The basket spoke to Talk and said, Talk, why don't you take me to market with you? You could make me choose the goodies that you want. And Talk, by now very fat and extremely lazy, said, I can't be bothered. So the basket went and sat down by the side of the road. And what do you know? But this time, a Booleadoopie came along. Now, you're probably wondering, what is a Booleadoopie? Well, a Booleadoopie is however you'd like to imagine him. And the Booleadoopie picked up that basket, and he took it to the marketplace, and there they were surrounded by all the shopkeepers, who pointed at the basket and said, there's that basket that's been cheating us. And they grabbed hold of the basket and they filled it. What do you think they filled it with? No, not any food of any kind. Not the food that you don't like either. They filled it with slugs and snails and cockroaches and centipedes and eels, little snakes and locusts and caterpillars and all kinds of bugs and creepy, icky, wicky, scrawly, wally things. The Booleadoopie put the basket down. The basket got out its little legs, and it ran all the way back to Lazy Talk. Here I am, said the basket. Don't you want to see what I've got for you? I can't be bothered, said Talk. Why don't you just show me yourself? Oh, all right, said the basket. And the basket emptied itself into Tok's lap. And all those icky-wicky, scrawly-wally things began to bite and sting and crawl all over lazy Tok. And Tok got up and she began to run. She ran, and she ran, and she ran, and she ran. As far as I know, she's running still, but she's a lot thinner. So that gives you an idea of one of the stories. So when I'm telling that, of course, in schools and things, I get all the children to join in, etc. And I'm sorry that your audience is not able to join in with me, but I hope you are from home.
Yes.
So I enjoyed that love of storytelling a very great deal. And then as you said in a very kind introduction, that I went to university and I then worked as a storyteller and traveled all over the place, performing, etc. And then in 2007, I moved up here to settle in the Yorkshire Dales. And I'd had a very busy career. Life had been very stressful, very, very stressful indeed. I hadn't been very well either. And so I wanted to do something really a lot more creative. You know what it's like when you're earning a living and you have to look after a family, you have to sometimes do those jobs that you don't necessarily want to do. And so you end up doing consultancy and all of these kind of things. And I really wanted to dedicate myself to working in community and doing joyful things. And so Settle Stories was born. So is this a good time for me to perhaps share some photographs and things of Settle?
Absolutely, Sita. That'll be wonderful. Wonderful. Please go ahead.
Okay, so now if I get this right, so hopefully this is going to work. So this is that's where So that's where I am in Settle at the moment. That's on a glorious sunny day. Today it's slightly overcast and grey, but that's because we're in the middle of winter. And you can see it's very green. The dales are very, very picturesque and very beautiful. And Settle is a small market town. In this area of North Yorkshire, there are more sheep than people. So we're talking about a sparsely populated area, which has a lot of farming communities. And I'll come back to that in a little while. So let me just show you a couple of other images. Here we are. So you can see here, these are the little kind of cobbled streets of Settle, which allows you to, when we were having festivals and things and live festivals in the days before COVID, we used to, walk up these little streets and tell stories in the corners and that kind of thing. And then I'll show you one more picture, which just tells you exactly where I am at the moment. So on your screen at the moment is the center of Settle Market Town. Has a population size of 2,400. So we're talking about quite a small community. Pretty much everybody knows everybody else. I remember a friend of mine once some years ago phoned up somebody in Settle and said, "Oh, can I speak to Sita?" And she said, "Oh, no, Sita's not here. You've got the wrong number." And she said, "Oh, okay, it's all right. I'll find the right number." She said, "Oh, no, I'll give you her number." And she said, "What is this place? I'm ringing the wrong number, and somebody knows where Sita is. How is this even possible?" And it's a bit like that, It's like everybody does know everyone else. I remember coming up here when we came up from London, going into the local supermarket. And, in London, everything is very like rush. And here, everyone's sitting around, chat, everybody knows everybody else. It's there's a really very strong sense of community, which I enjoy. So on your screen, you can see there's a big town hall. We used to have an office in the town hall before we moved about 5 years ago. And then you can see some cars in the marketplace. And beyond that, there is the Naked Man Cafe. And just after the Naked Man Cafe, behind that, the building there is the joinery, which is actually an old barn that's been converted. And we have the upstairs of the joinery. And that's a space that we are creating. We used to have lots of live events. And now we're looking to to do more creating of digital experiences. So I'll stop there for a moment.
Yes, Sita, take a breath. Oh, that was beautiful. I mean, you beautifully showed us through pictures, and it is like a dream storytelling town or the space that you've created, settled stories. Sita, I remember meeting you in 2010 when you visited Bombay, and you were just about starting with settled
Mm,
stories,
mhm.
and you moved on to the online festival. So, could you tell us a little bit more about your journey, your passion, which you absolutely brought it into life? And how did all this happen? Who runs Settle Stories with you? Uh, is it a group of people? Could you tell us a bit more? Because we have many organizations which are set up in small towns in India,
Yeah.
especially in the last 2 years. And this would be interesting for our listeners.
So when I started, it was basically me, and I had just walked around the streets and I got volunteers. And everybody volunteered, and we made a festival. I managed to raise a small amount of money to pay a few artists to come, and accommodation and things like that, and beg, borrowed, steal, that sort of thing, to get the whole thing off the ground. And so this was the poster of the first festival. I'm just going to share this page with you so you can see. So here, so that was our first festival in October 2010, trying to depict the sense of the oral tradition and everything that's related to stories, and having something that was kind of really fun and very colorful. And when I walked around the streets and I told people, oh, we're going to have a storytelling festival, and they'd go, what is that? I've never heard of it. What is that? And I'd go, people telling stories. They'd go, what do you mean? Just standing there telling stories? I said, yeah, maybe telling stories everywhere, all over the place. They'll be interested in telling stories. So so that was the first couple of years, and around that time, I met a man called Bill Mitchell, and Bill, in the second year, he came and actually did a performance for us, well, a presentation for us about traditional Yorkshire stories. Sadly, and you can see, I think he's going to come up on your screen. Sadly, Bill died a few years ago. But what was interesting, and why I bring it up, is because Bill had been recording the stories of ordinary and local people for many years. And in fact, his tapes were going to be thrown out. And I said, oh no, this is valuable material. This is really important for our community. So I feel it's very important that the stories that we carry, that we told, we know, the reason that those old epics and things that we've continued to tell each other, whether it's the Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc., is because they were traditionally an oral tradition, isn't it? It's passed down. And we need to remember these. We need to remember also that what life is like, pre-Zoom and COVID and digital. It's wonderful that it is, but we do need to remember that life too.
Absolutely.
So
I
that was
agree.
so I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. And then about a year later, a young man came into my office and said he wanted to volunteer. And Charles Tyra, he just finished his university. He was living with his parents, and he volunteered. And then he went off to do a little bit of work somewhere else and didn't particularly like it. I said, look, come back. We'll make a job somehow. We'll make a job. So I just got whatever I could together so that he would stay, because we got on really well. We are very, very different. I'm definitely old enough to be his mother, if not his grandmother. And so now, from being a volunteer, he's now the executive director. He looks after, a lot of the programming around the festival. He's the Mr. Moneybags. He deals with, all the money and the fundraising and all this kind of thing. And this is the two of us in Settle, just in one of the couple streets down the road. And what's been very exciting and interesting working with him, and I really encourage people to work with others, and working with someone who's very different to you, because you have different conversations. And in those different conversations, you are able to actually, it doesn't become 1 and 1 is 2, it becomes 1 and 1 is 50, because you have so many ideas that you spark each other and that become really interesting. So behind Settle Stories is basically me and Charles. In addition to that, we have a part-time person who does all the finances, and we have another part-time person who does quite a lot of our content writing for blogs, this, that, and other. And then she does some digital event stuff. And we have freelancers. We have a lot of volunteers. I know that when people came to experience the festival some years ago, and they said, I know more than one person would say to me, Sita, before I came here, I thought that Settle Stories was this big, huge corporation. I can't believe it's basically you and Charles. And I went, yeah, it's just us. We work very, very hard. We work very long hours. We work we work far too late at night and in the middle of the night and in the early morning. We have had 11-hour meetings before now because there's a deadline. We have to get it. We have to make it happen. But then the joy of it is that we have been able to do some remarkable things and create something that is of meaning and of value. Let me show you a little bit of a few photographs from the festival. So this was the last festival that we had. Let me just.
This was last year, 2011?
This is from 2018. This is the last live festival that we had.
Okay.
So this one here, you can see, is in the middle of the marketplace. It's coming. I don't know why it's gone like that. I have no idea, but hopefully it'll stop shimmering because
It stopped.
It's gone now. So this is basically a huge. Can you see? This is a big, massive whale.
Yes.
So these are people queuing to go inside the whale for storytelling performance.
Wow. So how did you create the whale? I guess
we worked with another company, Circle Garambaba. They brought it with them. It's their show. So they were one of the artist groups that we worked with. But this is what I mean why we try to do things in a little different way, so that there's a kind of slightly different experience.
you certainly do. Going into the inside of the whale and listening to a story, that's just
it's a very different way. So we have also things like we have a bell tent, which is like this big tent, and then you have events inside that. And so here you can see a packed tent with kids. So this was for, say, young children's thing. I don't know what the show was, but you can see the audience all enjoying themselves. And then we've also been able to do, so this is me outside the town hall when we were doing some kamishibai storytelling. So kamishibai is a traditional Japanese storytelling. So we commissioned the making of this kamishibai and then created stories, etc. You can see it's freezing cold, which is why I've got this coat on.
And you got the cycle also. That's the way it was told.
It's freezing. But it allows you to have some fun. So a couple of other interesting things that your audiences might be interested in. I'll just show you a couple of other things here.
Well, bring it on. I'm completely entranced.
It's bonkers. All of it really is bonkers. But anyway, so we also have. So we also do things like story walks.
Okay.
So here you can see these are the people walking near up in the hills, not far from the picture I showed you before, and they're going on a storytelling walk. Against the rock is actually the storyteller there, telling stories that are related to the landscape. So you do also quite a lot of things that try to show what the environment that we're in, and to enjoy that altogether. So just a couple of other things, but as well as performances on stage.
Mhm.
Here, there's a couple here. And so visual has always been really important. So we try always to make spaces look interesting, with like the balloons and the lighting and all these kinds of things, because they actually bring something to life. So
Absolutely.
that was from an early festival, and then but even very early on, we could see that there was a huge amount of interest, more so than I could have imagined. Here we are. So I think this was in the first year of running the Storytelling Festival. And this is the inside of the Victoria Hall, and which is a small theatre, the longest running music hall venue in England. And you can see it's absolutely packed. And it was for this event called Tea and Tales, where everyone's sitting around, and then afterwards, then they'll have tea and cakes, and then more stories. So there's always been a sense of bringing to the community the option of also experiencing storytellers from different cultural backgrounds. So you can see here that we've got Gitanda Gite, who's from Kenya, and then other storytellers from different places. People, Alia, who's in the top photo, she's from the Lebanon, and actually a kind of a range of experiences, and also like a potter. So Matthew there, who's making the pot, is also telling the story of the pot. So this has been something that's been a real passion of mine, was that, stories are not just like the folk tale, wonderful though it is that I've just told you, but they are our life stories and the things that we'd like to share and to discuss with one another, because that's what keeps us all alive. And so this brings me on to, actually, I've got a couple of other photos from the festival to show you, just because they're nice and fun.
Please.
So this one is just of very nice cake. So you can see everybody ate well. Because when you're in Yorkshire, you've got to have really good cake. Everybody, no one's going to go home hungry. They've got to have a really good time. And also we would do things as well, working with visual artists. Things like this. So this one you can see is like a bird, and you'll get, if you put your head into the bird and you start to make a noise, it sounds like a bird is talking. And then the children, of course, really loved it. And so this was a way of gathering people and getting people to share their own stories, but also in different ways. So one of the things we also did was, I think I've got it. Have I got it? I did have the golden hat. I can't see it. Is that we used to have this game where we'd have a golden bags of magic beans, and people would take the magic beans, and then they would go and find a storyteller, and the storyteller would have a golden hat, and they would exchange a magic bean for a story. So all sorts of different ways of bringing story alive. But we haven't also forgotten the kind of digital realm. So in fact, in 2018, we had an event called, this is a very small photograph, so I hope you can see it, called Wi-Fi Wars, where everyone came with their mobile phones, and they all had to, they had to guess things, and they're therefore very much the gamification of stories, because as you're aware, the games industry is the very big industry in the world. And that's where lots of games are taking place. on that score. So there's a couple of other things I'll share with you, and then I'll hand over to you to ask me any questions.
Oh, I
Um,
have plenty.
so one of the things that I was going to share with you is this is about Bill Mitchell, and I was talking, about this sense of community stories and community tales. So one of the things we built as well was this website called the W.R. Mitchell Archive, which you can now see on your screen, and where we collected these tapes that Bill they would have been thrown away. And I had a number of the tapes digitized. It's a long-term project, this. And
Okay.
here you can see these are one of a small audio clip. And I'm going to play a little bit. I don't know if your listeners will understand it because it's in a very, very broad accent. So you have to listen carefully. But you are helped because there is a transcription underneath. So if
Mm-hmm.
your listeners go to the website afterwards, they would be able to see what the meaning is. But let's play a little bit, see how it goes.
Yeah. Shot revolver always loaded. And she? And I tell you what, she's turned people out with revolver. There was a knocker, Brocklebank from Kirby used to go. He was a knockabout man. And he used to go call come from Kirby Stephen. And he'd get a bit unruly. Once went in and demanding something from Susan, I forget what is something to eat, and demanding and wanting to stop. And however, Susan turned him out with pointed revolver. However, he went out, but he pinched one of her hens, and he floated it for Tunhill down to Pete.
What did he do with it?
He floated it on the road way down, like plucking on.
Oh, yes.
Feathers off.
Yeah.
And feathers was on the road all the way down.
Was he still alive?
No, he killed it.
Yeah.
His ring neck.
Yeah.
And he floated it. Then he went down to Pit, to La Pit. You know where Tunhill, where Dip went, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So we'll stop there. But you can see that
Yes.
these kinds of stories, these accents, and these will exist all over the world. It's not just here in England and in this area. It's these old, this old tale about this man who went to this, this inn, and he takes this bird and he kills the bird, and he's there's another one where in the days before there was a dentist, there's a clip where a guy goes and they didn't have a dentist, so he went to see this blacksmith who had pliers and pulled out the teeth. It's like but these stories, for me, these stories are as important as those folk tales that were told. Those folk tales that were told traditionally were ones that passed down, that they were there. But now we have these new stories as well that we can also share.
Yeah, Sita, the story about the hen, which your colleague was telling, and of course, I could read the transcript. We have a story from the South. I heard it from Jiva Raghunath, one of, wonderful storytellers from South India. It's Kori Kunju. I'm not able to remember. It's a song story. It's about a little hen. So the Kori Kunju, then she goes to the parlor where actually she's plucked, and then she has a bath. So it's a beautiful way how the little hen is being, marinated and everything. So that's a song story. Just reminded me of your story.
Yeah.
Um,
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, I forget, but I think I'll remember it later. Sita, if I can ask you a few questions on
Mm,
what you shared with us, it was beautiful. I just loved it. I thought I should engage you as the consultant for my next festival at Mumbai Storytellers Society. The ideas. I know that England is, the land of fairy tales, stories, though India is also a land of
yeah.
stories. But The kind of stories in England, it kind of really transports you into a magical land, at least for us Indians, and even the world over. But the way you have planned your festival, is it a weekend festival? Is it a week long festival? How long does the Settle Festival run?
So when we used to have the Settle Festival, it used to run over a weekend in the middle of Settle. And then in 2020, when the pandemic struck, we went online. And working digitally has been something that I've been very interested in. So we started with these early projects with like taking Bill Mitchell's stories online. And then we've also experimented with things like virtual reality, storytelling, and interactive fiction, which you mentioned in the introduction. And I'd love to show you a little bit of the interactive fiction. So then with the festival, when it went online, you don't want to be online all day, it's just too much. So we made it a month-long festival. So last year we didn't have enough money to do a month, but we did it was about 16 days. So 40, 50 events, I think 13,500 people together, something like that, who attended. And the events are very, very varied. So they are a way of us, bringing the community together internationally in a way. About a third of our audience are people with disabilities or health conditions and who can't get out, and therefore the online access has been very wonderful.
Absolutely.
And there's also there's traditional storytelling as well as a number of talks. So last year we had talks from people like Dame Marina Warner, and so this is Caroline Parker, who's a deaf actress and comedian. And then we did have a kind of theatre show as well, which was also online, which was like a kind of modern day version of Pinocchio. And then as well, this lovely piece with Michael Morpurgo, based on a book by Michael Morpurgo, who's a very famous writer. This is storytelling from Sierra Leone, from Story. Jack Zipes, who's a very important fairy tale professor of fairy tales. And then we had the festival guest director was Kevin Crossley Holland, who you can see here, whose book Arthur the Always King he presented, and here's Dame Marina Warner, who is of course a mythologist and folklorist. So it was a kind of a range of different things. Anna Medica did some things for children and young people. So what we try to do is to mix it up with talks, performances, workshops. We have a real passion on training and letting people grow and learn, which is what was the heart of why we wanted to set up Storyversity.
Wonderful. Sita, before we go to Storyversity, I want to tell the listeners that you are watching Sita Brand on Storytellers Cafe, and this is a two-part series. Today is part one, and we'll be continuing next Sunday. That is the 13th of February. Same time, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time and 3:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and then Eastern Time in the United States would be 10:30 a.m. in the morning. So do tune in and watch the shows. And Sita talks to us more about Storyversity. Sita, before we go to Storyversity, where you can just tell us a little bit and then we could kind of come to an end today's show. You beautifully conceived it, and definitely right from 2010, and it is magical. I've been to Scotland, I've been to Edinburgh to see the Scottish International Storytelling Festival in 2011. I was there. I find maybe Edinburgh is much, much bigger, bigger town than Settle.
It
And
is.
this is quaint, small, like you say, cobbled. It itself is like a storytelling village. And the way you conceived and planned, did your experience as a traveling storyteller working with other big companies help you? And
Yes and no. I think the thing for me has always been that stories are communicated because they bring about greater understanding between groups. So the driving thing within me is about how we can live in a more peaceful world. We are living in a fractured world. It's politically has been, we've all lived under very divisive politics. It's not all over yet, let's face it. Um, and it's been very challenging times. And for me, actually, the thing is about how do we understand one another? You can't hate someone when you know their story. So for me, in this area, which is one of the whitest areas in the country, uh, this is I've been called a gollywog here. We have had a black storyteller, Sierra Leone, going into the local school, and a young child, 7, 8 years old, going up to him and saying, "Were you born like that?" Because they've never seen a black person before. And um, so, and he answered very respectfully. And but this is because people don't know, and they don't. It's ignorance, and they don't know people's stories. So for me, the drive has always been that we need to listen to each other's stories to build a sense of community and harmony. And that is the foundation. And that is the foundation of Settled Stories, always was and always will be. It is about how do we bring the world together so that we can be more understanding of the challenges that we face on this planet.
absolutely. Very well said, Sita. Yes. How can we bring about this understanding and bring the communities closer and together? And wonderful. I really wish you continued success in this, and would love to come and be part of your festival, physically experience it, because I just enjoyed going inside the whale and, I mean, it was lovely, the bird, going in and, telling your story.
Mm.
Um, Beautiful, beautiful. And all this, the festival is free of charge,
Yeah,
see, and but you need money, you need funding.
we do.
And how to raise your funds? Now that
So,
is,
so the festival is run partly through we apply for funds from various funding bodies, and we also ask for donations. And by having this donation model and not having ticket sales, it means that people who cannot afford, so we've had people write to us and say, I can barely pay my electricity bill. And because this was free, I was able to come and I was able to see these world-class performers. I can't there are no words. I cannot thank you enough. And other people who are very, very, very well off would make us very big donations. The donations varied between £3 and £1,000. So, that is because there are different people who have different means. And this means that we can all share, and it means that we are on a more level playing field. That said, we do have to have resources. So we are dependent on grants and things, but we're now building up Storyversity, which I'll talk to you in more detail about next week. But Storyversity is our site for teaching people how to tell stories so they can make a difference. I hope you can hear today about my desire about how we want to make the world a better place. So I'll just,
yes,
for this final thing, just share with you this, what Storyversity is. So here we are, this is Storyversity. Storyversity is a membership site, and it costs £150 a year or £18 a month. And
hmm,
you get everything. So there are lots of different courses. And they're all small bite-sized courses, and we'll go into this next week about what there is, and as well as various live offerings. So this is the start, and there are more courses coming on stream. So
Wonderful. Sita, sorry, you had mentioned to me while we were talking that you would be offering some kind of a
yeah,
discount or something for the viewers of
yes,
Storytellers Cafe.
of
Uh,
course.
and because I have posted this on the school librarians group, there are a lot of librarians from
Yeah.
around India. And I told them that this would be of interest to you because most of the schools have maybe not a storytelling festival, a literature festival,
Mhm.
where storytelling is an important segment.
Mm.
So they have storytellers come and tell stories, as well as authors and illustrators coming and reading their book and interacting with the children. So each school has a literature festival every year. So this would be really interesting because I know some of the schools are building up how to train their children to be storytellers. And this would be very, very interesting. So if you're listening, please do join us next Sunday because Sita will tell us about the discount that she can offer us, when you subscribe to Storyversity and how you can benefit from it. Go on, Sita.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm really looking forward to doing that. That's really good. And in the meantime, if your listeners want to go to see, because we have lots of free stuff that's already available, and
Hmm.
so your listeners can go to the Settle Stories website, which is settlestories.org.uk, and
Hmm.
we have events that are taking place that people can sign up to. So free online storytelling for World Storytelling Day, a World Book Day for schools, free artists networking for Ramadan, etc. There's lots and lots of free things that we have. So this is with in terms of the free offer. Some things are paid for, like the Alfie Moore. And then finally, I'll just show you this, which is, I suppose, one of the things that came into looking at how do we work in a digital environment. In fact, in 2019, before the pandemic started, we had our
Hmm.
first hybrid event where for World Storytelling Day, we had live storytelling and storytellers from 7 continents performing as well digitally. And we had an audience online and live. So when the pandemic struck, this meant that we had the capacity, the understanding, because we'd already been versed in Zoom, and Zoom has grown and developed since. But we had already figured out how you could do those things with Zoom, and those were the days when Zoom was, was known, but not as well known as it is now, and where we had a lot of support in setting up, our event. And then also it was we mentioned to you this interactive fiction. So this is also a free thing where you can go in, and with interactive fiction you read, and then there's also the chance to click on and make a decision as to what you might look at. So here, she flicks through the book. I don't know what's happened there. I think there's a problem with the internet, so we'll go on to that one. She picks up, but you can see that she has these, and within this, then there are actually some little animations and also some stories that reveal itself, because this is based on the story of which I wrote, about Alice's older sister following Alice down the rabbit hole.
Okay, okay. Sita, this is really interesting. I wouldn't want this to end, but we have some of the viewers on live chat, and I would like to hear um, just kind of bring it up here. Jagdish Chandra Sadhu says hi, and we have Veenu Bakshi. Veenu Bakshi, I know, is a teacher. She teaches in a pre-primary school in Delhi. And Veenu, if you're there, hi, and thank you for listening. And she says this is very interesting. She also says, um, Um, no, this is Shiraz Saini who says, so fascinating. I'm glued listening to you both. Shiraz Saini is another wonderful storyteller from Mumbai. Thank you, Shiraz, for listening in. And she also goes on to say, Sita, um, so true, Sita. This is the need of the hour to bring the world together. Oh, but that's really great. And we have another comment. Oshira says, I'm a storyteller based in Chandigarh. Oh, I'm
Oh,
so sorry, Shiraz. I thought you were in Mumbai. Are you, if you're still there, would you like to ask Sita some questions? Because we can take another 5 minutes. So we would love to engage with you. Originally from Mumbai, she says. Okay. So I was not wrong.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it would be lovely to meet anybody who is a storyteller to come to our artist networking events. As I say, all the information is on the website, settlestories.org.uk, and just check it out and come and meet us. We're really always keen to meet with other artists and look at how we can collaborate. I haven't had time today to talk to you about our work with Shantamuni Mudaya, the Bangalorean sculpture artist, but maybe there'll
mhm.
be a little time next week to talk about that before we talk about Storyversity.
Sure, sure, Sita. And if it's the viewers want something more, if you agree, we could stretch it to a third week because I wouldn't want this to end because this is like this is really going down the rabbit hole because I want to talk to you so much about your work with Thich Nhat Hanh, your
Yeah,
mindfulness program, and bomb. You said about Laos, your
Laos, yeah.
yeah,
Bombs at my
Laos.
feet. Mm.
Yes, I would love to know about it. So we will definitely converse
Maybe
next
another
week.
time. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sita, for this episode on Storytellers Cafe. It's been really interesting. And like I said, it was my dream to get you on board, and I have you finally. So I hope you're enjoying. We would like to hear your comments. Please do join us next Sunday, and you can engage in a live chat with us. Okay, there is one more last comment. Shiraz says, waiting to get into your website and
Yeah.
look at all the details. The whale show and the bell tent was so innovative. Yes. Thank you, Shiraz, for tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday. And thank you, Sita, so much for this wonderful, wonderful session. It was really magical, completely lost myself. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next week. And it's time for me to play the jingle and end the session. So thank you, listeners. See you next week, same time, same place.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.